Hello, everybody, and welcome to the EF Show. Today's podcast will be talking about Halloween and some cool facts and the world's biggest pumpkin and how it's grown and a whole bunch of cool facts about that. And later on in the show, we will be discussing some of the best Halloween decorations and some interesting facts that you didn't know about Halloween. So, I record this podcast a week after Halloween, and you might be wondering why, and my answer is, well, because I wanted to get all the most accurate data that I could to be able to bring this to you. And so I was waiting a week, and some of the facts are pretty cool, and some information and statistics from this year's Halloween are mind blowing. And so we'll be getting to some of those statistics at the end of the episode. But first, we're going to be talking about the world's biggest pumpkin and how it's grown. Compared to normal pumpkins, you think of a big pumpkin, maybe the size of, I'm trying to think of a good size basketball, maybe. And so these pumpkins, though, are the sizes of some small cars. And I don't have a photo of it right now, but it's outrageously big. It's colossal. And I can't explain it. It was in New Hampshire last year, and they grow some big pumpkins over there because this competition they had them, and they had to bring them in on trailers and cranes and stuff, and these things weigh thousands upon thousands of pounds. So did you know pumpkins have been growing in America for around 5,000 years? So that's way back, way back. There might not have been many people here then. So that shows us that they are a native grown crop here. I forget. There's some weird classification of what a pumpkin is. It is, I believe it's a vegetable, but in the categories they have some really weird squash related stuff that they can make of pumpkins not a fruit or vegetable. It's a weird situation. But back to the pumpkin season, they do require a long growing season from 75 to 100 frost free days, and the frost is what kills them because their roots freeze up and then nutrients and everything can't get into the core of the seed, and it doesn't allow it to grow. So 75 to 100 days. So looking at that, that's around a third of the year. So you're going to be looking at the mid to late summer, and then you're going to try to get as much out of it into the fall as you can. And to grow this type of pumpkin, you need to pick a site with full sun to light shade and lots of space for sprawling vines. Vine varieties need to be 50 to 100 square feet per hill. So when you're growing pumpkins, you need to put them in like this little hill, not a hill like 50 feet tall, just like one that's maybe a foot or two. And so that'll allow all the vines, everything to get all nutrients from all around. And because pumpkins are big, they're greedy feeders. They prefer very rich soil that has well drained and not too soggy water. So you want that moist, good, fertile soil, and wait to plant the pumpkin in the soil until it is about 70 degrees Fahrenheit out, because the seeds need the optimum soil temperature to be at least that, and to be able to grow and hit the peak at the right time, it's at 95 degrees. And since pumpkins are very sensitive to the cold, 70 is about as low as you can go to plant them. So the best time to have them growing at their peak is at 95 degrees. So you want that 70 degrees whenever you're going to plant it to have it ramp up. And plant the seeds in a 1-inch deep hill, 4 to 5 per hill. Space hills about 4 to 8 feet apart. In rows, seeds need to be 6 to 12 inches apart in rows of 6 to 10 feet apart. Snip off the plants with too thin to one plant every 18 to 36 inches. And so that's how you grow a normal pumpkin. So pretty basic. You can find that on the back of a plant you get at Home Depot or Lowe's. And looking at the biggest pumpkin now, these take, you get a basketball-sized pumpkin at the biggest. And then you're looking now at a small car. So what does it take to grow such a massive pumpkin like this? So in September 2018, the biggest pumpkin ever grown in America won the first place at the Deerfield Fair in New Hampshire. The pumpkin weighed an astonishing 2,528 pounds. Think about that. 2,000 pounds. It's actually 2,500 pounds. That is crazy. And that's from the Thrillist.com. But based on our information, on normal pumpkin information, I don't know why I put that on the script, but based on our normal information, imagine the growing season in America for normal pumpkins. So what does it take for this massive pumpkin? So these pumpkins closely relate to the family of pumpkins called the germinate monster pumpkins. And these seeds are planted at temperatures of 65 to 75 degrees. So remember how we started out 70 before? We wanted to get up to 95 at the peak. And the soil temperatures need to get up to from 70 to 90. So they aren't as high of a range. They don't go from the mid 70s, or my bad, the low 70s to the mid 90s. And these ones, they have a 20-degree range in there. So they are actually grown at a similar temperature. As you can see, they're just a few degrees off. But you just need to get the bigger seeds. And these seeds are considerably larger than normal pumpkin seeds. And you need to have very, very fertile soil. And the soil allows the pumpkin to get all the nutrients and to grow bigger. And with the bigger seeds, you get a bigger pumpkin, and add in all the nice exact temperatures and everything. And with all the perfect circumstances, you can grow a massive pumpkin like this. And you also need the perfect growing season with precise amounts of water along with sunlight. So not only is it about planting these seeds and getting the bigger pumpkins, it's actually harder than just planting it and then doing the right stuff to it. You have to rely on Mother Nature to give you the perfect climate. And with all this, that's why it's so hard to see these world record pumpkins. You only get one or two, you don't have them repeatedly, is because you can get the right information to grow these big pumpkins, but you don't have the circumstances exactly where you live, and it's definitely not every year. It's once in a while. And I think that's kind of interesting, because you'll get one year that's massive, and then maybe the next year you'll get a super tiny one as the biggest one. Maybe, it's kind of like what happened with this year's crop, just gets washed out. And a fun fact about pumpkins, there are 42 varieties of pumpkins. Who knew there's so many of them? 42 varieties. I look out and I see orange, and I'm like, yep, that's a pumpkin. You see something else, probably like a squash or something like that. I never thought there'd be 42 of them. Now, they all have a similar color, just the patterns on them and how they're shaped can be different. That's how it's the variation between them, and that's how they separate which ones are which. And so I thought all this was interesting, thinking of a normal-sized pumpkin, easy to carve, and doing the same thing with these massive pumpkins must be like a really hard task. And the dedication on this stuff takes time. And so you see some pumpkin carvers who take carving to the next level, but I wonder what it's like to carve such a massive pumpkin like that. So we'll be right back after this quick short break, and we'll be talking about some cool decorations and the other Halloween festivities. Okay, so we're back. So you've seen those house decorations for the holidays that went all out. Christmas lights, they have Christmas trees, their whole house just gets altered from their normal everyday house to a Christmas extravaganza. Well, people don't think that that decorating for Halloween is all that important, but there are some people who take this to the next level. So the same people who decorate for Christmas don't go all out for Halloween normally, but there are people who love and take time and dedication, commitment to this Halloween theme. And so looking at some of these, they have lights and everything, and I'll have these photos posted on my Instagram and Twitter, link in the description. But I'll give you a mental picture now so you can enjoy what these will look like. Since you're listening to my podcast, you will not have the ability to see the images, but you can go back later and I will describe to you now what they are, so you can go back and see if my explanation of it is what cracks up to reality. So first, this is an image of a home of a former mayor, and they were on the Weather Channel the other day, probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this house is, I believe it's 3,000 pumpkins. Yes, it's 3,000 pumpkins that are carved and lined up. They line the gutters of the house, the front doors. The outline is like Christmas lights, just they're pumpkins. And so I was listening to an interview that they were doing with him, and every year he was getting pumpkins delivered from Ohio, and they number about 3,000 each year. And a cool thing is these kids and adults from all over the town, so these locals, are coming and they help carve, and even in the rain they help cut up the pumpkins and they help carve them, and they over time they carve all 3,000 of them, and they average 500 to 800 per day. So, I mean, you have to gut the pumpkin, you have to carve it and everything. So it takes a lot of time alone for one of them. So, I mean, when you have a whole town commitment like this, it's kind of cool to see that. And what the end result is, you end up with all of this whole street of pumpkins. And the photos in the interviews and stuff, they are amazing. I mean, you have people in Pouring Down Rain carving pumpkins. They have like pro carvers from around carving them. And you don't see things like that. But I mean, the final result is worth it. And they were talking about how his backyard is filled up with pumpkins. So like 2 weeks before Halloween, it's just covered in pumpkins. And they keep getting shipments in and everything, and it's just outrageous some years how many they have. And the end result is perfect. It's a wonderful design, it's creative, and I mean, I was thinking about all this, and I was like, oh wait, so what's up with all the pumpkins and everything? How do they guarantee that many? Well, back to our growing season discussion, they have to be perfect. So if it's a really rainy year, they can't have as many. So it relies on, it's a whole chain that relies on Mother Nature. And so they were talking about the farmer from Ohio, and he actually, when his crops aren't good enough to take down there, he goes and gets pumpkins from Illinois. So you get the Illinois to Ohio, then down to wherever this is in the South. I believe it's in Texas. I might be wrong about that, but it's a whole process. And so you can see that not only does it mess up crops, it messes up some decorations and things throughout the holidays. And so on to our next house. So you've seen the houses with the giant spiders in them, right? Well, this house is covered with a spider. So the big spiders that normally cover up a few rooms on top of your house, this one is about like 6 times the size of it. It is over an entire house, and it has spider webs everywhere around it. And their house is like cocooned back in, and it's covered. And the house-sized spider is kind of like protecting it in a way. So it's kind of interesting to see there's an entrance and everything, and they really set up the whole scene quite nicely. And looking at some of these, now there's only like 2 or 3 images I was able to find on these because I wanted to look at some of the same themes of the massive spiders. They sell these massive spiders and they're like $1,000, but whenever you put them up, it's a problem. Like some people get like small cranes and stuff or pulley systems, and those are just from those normal big spiders that you can put on your roof. But these ones, I mean, when they're covering a whole house, that is a process that probably starts a month before. It's quite interesting. And so our third and final house it's a pretty cool one. So these people have decorated their house like a medieval castle. Skeletons are climbing into the castle, and they changed their door to an old wood panel castle door style. So kind of like you see it like over the bridge of the moat, right there, like the wood style door. And there are skeletons sawing. There are rotundas on the side, and you can see the house next to it, what the house would look like, and it's completely different. They have they've wrapped it, painted it, done whatever. They have like the top part of the castle on there, and it's quite cool. They have lights, and it's super creative to see all these skeletons and stuff. There's a witch on the top actually too, and now I'm looking at it. But those are 3 examples of many across the nation that decorate and are committed to this Halloween theme. And that's what makes Halloween fun. You get to see all the lights and the creative aspects of what the human imagination can come up with. And I mean, while it is not exactly a good holiday, it is one that is interesting whenever you look around town. You never know what you might come across. You come across 3,000 pumpkin houses, a spider that is eating a house, or even a throwback to the medieval days where the dead are protecting the castle. And so I think those are all interesting. And in December, I will do an entire episode on absolutely amazing decorations that people put up for the holiday season. Another commitment is Halloween costumes. So there are some kids who get fully committed into this, and they buy like $1,000 costumes, or create some interesting masterpieces and stuff. And it's a lot of fun to see the pictures rolling in and looking all over. You see all these genres of jobs and stuff that kids want to be when they grow up. So every year they change what they want to be, and they dress up as it. And there are some really amazing ones. Now, you think about all that and you see ones that cost $20, ones that are upwards of 100, and some that are crazy amounts of money, like $500 to $1,000. But the total people in the U.S. here in 2019 spent on costumes is $3.2 billion. Yes, billion with a B. Now, I understand maybe a few hundred million on it, but 3.2 billion, that is just costumes. That is a business right there. Whenever you're earning that much, these companies, I mean, there's like a few companies, there aren't a ton of them, but 3.2 billion, that's the most of any of the Halloween themes or products that are purchased. It's costumes are the most at 3.2 billion. So looking at decorations, I was thinking, okay, maybe candy would be next on the list of the most amount of money that is spent by Americans every year at Halloween. And no, it's on decorations at 2.7 billion. And coming up to a close third is $2.6 billion on candy. So let's take a step back and think about how much candy you've bought. You know, the 15-pound sacks and everything that you said that you were buying for trick-or-treaters that you ate. Then you went back to the store 3 days later and realized that you need to get some trick-or-treaters candy. So you went back and you bought it again, and then you ate it again. So then you finally went back the same day, yes, and you bought another one. So there is $45 around that that you've spent on candy, and you've eaten half of it. So you need to get more and everything. So imagine that for people all over the nation. That's why that total gets up there, is because, you know, candy, they can price anything you want, and they will jack the prices up on that, and people will still buy it because it's a holiday. They're gonna buy anything that is related to it. And for a single day that wasn't even around a century ago, it's amazing that this much is being spent already on it. Now, with inflation and everything, that wouldn't be the same as back then, but just over a few years, it's taken off. It's come to one of the most expensive holidays besides like Christmas. And so it's interesting to see all this. And the most bought costume was a superhero, so just the general genre of a superhero. And the most bought candy was a Reese's cup. And it's crazy to see all this and what people come up with and everything. That's part of the whole Halloween experience, is being able to see what all people have come up with. And all over the nation, and especially haunted houses and Hollywood and theaters and that type of thing, they give that extra Halloween vibe into everyday life in October. But at the end of the month, we look back and see what all fun everyone had and everything. And it's crazy how much money is spent on that stuff. But we'll be looking at Christmas coming up because, you know, at the beginning of about a month out, at the beginning of December, we start looking at how much was spent at Black Friday. We start looking at what's coming up with Christmas and how the weather's affecting all that. And that's something that you might have realized from this podcast. We didn't exactly go over a whole lot of weather. And that was just because I wanted to put a podcast out here for Halloween, take a quick break from the science talks and everything, and go back and just look at what all happened this year for the Halloween and the beginning of the holiday season. And we will be doing these as the holidays come up. We will be taking a break, but we will be applying a bit more science into it. And that's where it gets interesting. And that's why you're here at the EF show. And keep listening, and we will have some good podcasts coming up. And there is an announcement I will be making on the next podcast that will be set aside for some plans, and we're looking at some timing and things and some new announcements on where the podcast will be located and what some of the future goals are of us and what we'll be doing. So I want to thank you again for listening today, and I hope you all have a great day.